Hello everyone. In this tutorial, what I'll be covering is PHP functions, and functions, in my opinion, are very useful when you have a ton of code in which to keep things organized, and if you have a segment of code that you wish to reuse. Another example for how functions work or what they are is, say for example, we have programmed several robots in our home where each specific robot has been programmed to carry out a specific chore, such as we have a robot that can vacuum the floor, a robot that can wash the dishes, a robot that can fold the clothes, and so forth. However, we do not need all of our robots at the same time, and this is very similar to functions. We may have hundreds of functions we have programmed where each one has a set of code that can perform a certain action. However, we do not need to use all of our available functions at the same time, but when we are ready to use a specific function or robot, we can simply call on that function or activate that robot. So in a way, let's now finally dive into some basic PHP functions. So let's first learn how to create a basic PHP function. So I'm going to write in a comment block an example, and I'm going to start off with the word function, and then we're going to write the name of this function, and then we're going to open a parentheses, and inside our parentheses we would normally have parameters, but for some functions you don't have to have parameters if you don't like. And then we're going to close the parentheses, open a curly brace. On the next line I'm going to say execute this code, and then I'm going to close my curly brace. So quickly going back over this again, we have the word function just to indicate that we are about to use or define a function. This here is called a function definition. And after that, we write the name of the function. And then again, inside the parentheses, we can have parameters, which I get into later on. But some functions you may define not to have or take any parameters. All right, so after you have made a decision on that, we close our parentheses, open a curly brace, and then we execute some code, and then we close our curly brace. So some of the main common practices you should keep in mind when dealing with functions is the name you choose for a function should indicate what the function does. So for example, a function that adds the sum of two or more numbers might have a name like sum of numbers. And also, a function cannot start with a number. It can only start with an underscore or a letter. So let me give you an example of a basic PHP function. So I'm going to write a comment. I'm going to say basic function example. And on the next line, I'm going to say or write another comment that says what this function does. Function displays hello. Then I'm going to write the word function. I'm going to call it say hello. Again, the function name should indicate what the function does. And this function here isn't going to accept any parameters. So I'm going to have empty parentheses, open my curly brace. On the next line, I'm going to say echo hello, put a space in there, close my double quotes, end it with a semicolon. On the next line, put a curly brace. Next, I'm going to say hello. And basically what this is doing is I'm calling the function. I'm saying, hey, I'm ready to use this function that I defined. And then on the next line, I'm going to say echo Robert. I'm going to put a line break, end it with a semicolon. So let's go back over this before I load this into my browser. Here I created my function definition. All right. So this is really straightforward. Again, I indicated that I'm about to use a function. I defined a function name, or I created a function name for it. And all I'm doing here is just echoing out hello. So when I get to this point where I call the function, I'm calling it, I'm saying that I'm ready to use it. So PHP is scoping through this file and looking for a function definition that has the name say hello. So it finds it here and it sees that it doesn't accept any parameters. That's the first thing that it checks. And then it goes here to see what code should I execute. So really it's like taking echo hello and replacing this function call with echo hello. So anyway, that's what happens when we call the function. So it executes this code. So it says hello, and then we get to this next echo string and it says echo Robert with the line break. So anyway, let's just go ahead and save this. And I'm going to call it functions.php. Then I'm going to go over to my browser. I'll type localhost, PHP basics, and it's going to be functions.php. So when I load it, you can see it says hello Robert. Nothing really complicated, but here just giving you a really basic example how a function works. So next, let me give you an example with a function or a basic PHP function that accepts one parameter. So I'm going to say in a comment, basic function with one parameter. All right. On the next line, I'm going to say what the function does. I'm going to say function that takes a number and multiplies it by 2. All right. Now I'm going to start my function definition. I'm going to say multiply by 2. It's going to accept one parameter. Close my parentheses, open a curly brace. On the next line, I'm going to say answer equals number times 2. Then I'm going to say echo. We're going to put this in bold. And I'm going to say bold the answer. Then I'm going to put a line break. Oops. And end that echo command. And then I'm going to end this function definition. Next, I'm going to type echo 3 times 2 equals, put a space in my double quotes, put a semicolon. Then I'm going to type multiply by 2, put 3 there. Then I'm going to say in a comment, call our function. And that's going to be it. All right. So it may seem like I typed a lot, but it's not really that complicated. All right. So let's reevaluate here. First, we have our function definition, and I'll get back to what's going on in the function definition in a second. And then we have this echo string, and we're just outputting 3 times 2 equals and putting a space here so we can have a space for our answer. And then here we have where we're calling our function that we defined. Now, since we defined our function with one parameter, it expects us to place a parameter here or a value of some sort here. So if you don't place a value of some sort here, it's going to give you an error message. So it's taken 3, and if we go back up to our function definition, we can see that since we defined it with one parameter, it's taken 3 and assigning it to this variable that we defined, which is number. So number now equals 3. So when we come down into where we execute our code, here we can kind of think about it as if we're replacing the variable number with 3. All right. Going back to here, we sent 3 to this function call, all right, as the parameter. So when we get to the function definition, we're replacing number here really with 3. So it's really just 3 times 2, which is 6, being assigned to the variable answer. So then we get here and we echo out that information. So if I change that back to number and I save it and we go into our browser, hit refresh, as you can see, it says 3 times 2 equals 6. Now, I do understand that this may be a little complicated to comprehend the first time around, but if you view the video probably another time or two, maybe a week from now, you'll probably start to understand what's going on if you're not following what's going on currently. But anyway, let's continue to move on with another example. In this example, I'm going to create a basic PHP function that accepts 2 parameters. All right. Next, on the next line, I'm just going to say function that takes 2 numbers and adds them together. All right. So I'm going to say function, and I'm going to call this function sum of 2 numbers. Oops, 2 numbers. Then again, I'm going to use 2 parameters. And the way that you separate parameters is by a comma. And then I'm going to say num2, close my parentheses, open a curly brace. On the next line, I'm going to say sum equals num1 plus num2. On the next line, I'm going to echo out in bold sum, and I'm going to put a line break. Then close my curly brace. Next, I'm going to say echo 100 plus 100 equals Then I'm going to say sum of two numbers, 100, 100. And then I'm going to say call our function. All right. So let's again quickly reevaluate here. Again, we have our function definition, then we have our echo string, and then we call our function. So let's start again with this portion of the code. So here, nothing new with the echo. And then here for the next line, again, we indicated that we're defining this function with two parameters. So this function call is expecting two parameters. So we have 100 here and 100 here. All right, so if we go back up to our function definition, here we can see for our two parameters, we separated them by a comma. And again, if we go back to our function call, we can see we've sent 100, the numerical value 100, to the first parameter, which is num1. So num1 now equals 100. And again, for the second parameter, num2 equals 100. Very straightforward. So when we come to our segment of code, sum equals 100 plus 100, which is equal to 200. All right, so 200 has been assigned to the variable sum. So then we come down here to this echo string and we're just outputting the sum. Very simple. So sum is 200 and it's going to be bold. So if I save this, come over to my browser, refresh, as you can see, it says 100 plus 100 equals 200. Now, let me give you an example of if we did not send two parameters here. And I hit save and I refresh my browser. As you can see, it says warning, missing argument 2. So that's another way you can phrase it, is that this function definition takes two arguments, or you can say two parameters, whichever works for you. So again, this function definition, when we define this function, when we created our robot, for example, it's expecting two arguments here. So if it doesn't see two arguments when you call this function, when you say, I want to use this function, if it doesn't see two arguments or two parameters here, it's going to throw out an error message or a warning message. So again, I could put 50 here, for example, hit refresh. As long as there's two arguments there, it's going to go ahead and execute the code within these two curly braces. So let me change that back to 100 so it matches my echo string. All right.